Welcome to the deep dive. It's been just 6 days now since that truly heartbreaking event, the crash of Air India Flight 171.
Yep.
It was June 12th, 2025, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. And it went down just, moments after taking off from Ahmedabad.
Just tragic, the scale of it.
It really is. Devastating. We're talking 241 people on board lost, at least 30 more fatalities on the ground. And, remarkably, one survivor.
One survivor. Incredible amidst all that.
So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, it's not about sensationalizing, not at all. It's about trying to understand, to ask those really tough questions. What actually happened? Why did it happen? And maybe most importantly for you listening, what does this all mean? Could something like this, happen again?
Right. The big questions.
And there's one detail from the initial investigation findings that's already quite striking.
What's that?
It seems the aircraft's emergency power system, the ram air turbine, the RAT, it was deployed just seconds before the plane hit the ground.
Wow.
And that deployment, it often signals a really sudden catastrophic loss of power, either engine power or hydraulic power.
That's a major indicator, yeah. A last resort system.
Exactly. And I think for anyone who travels, who flies regularly, hearing that, it's incredibly unsettling. What's your immediate take on that, the RAT deployment specifically?
It's definitely shaken me too, I have to say. Seeing that detail emerge so early, that ram air turbine activating, it's a stark signal of a really severe emergency happening fast, very fast.
Right.
And it's significant because, even though the DGCA, that's India's aviation regulator, they gave the wider 787 fleet a clean bill of health recently. This crash, it's actually the first fatal one involving a Dreamliner in its entire 16-year history.
16 years. That's a long safety record to be broken like this.
It is. And zooming out a bit, the impact wasn't just contained to the aircraft itself. There's new footage coming out.
Yeah, I saw some of that. It's harrowing.
It really is. Showing the plane striking a medical college hostel. You see students just scrambling for their lives. There were dozens of survivors on the ground, thankfully, but still.
Still fatalities on the ground, too.
Exactly. And this whole aspect, it forces us to look again pretty soberly at how, urban sprawl and flight paths interact. Are we managing that risk adequately?
Absolutely. Serious questions there about planning flight paths over densely populated zones and also emergency readiness in those areas, right? If something goes wrong.
Precisely. The response on the ground becomes critical.
So now the focus, it's squarely on the black boxes, isn't it? The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder.
That's where the core data will be, yeah.
Indian teams, UK, US investigators, Boeing, GE, they're all working together on this. We're expecting a preliminary report in, about 3 months?
Roughly 3 months. That's the usual timeline for a preliminary look. Enough time to get the recorders read out, hopefully.
Okay. So let's start to unpack some of the potential causes being talked about right now. What are the theories floating around?
Well, you hear different things. Some aviation specialists, like former pilot Sara Bhatnagar, he suggested multiple bird strikes.
Right after takeoff? I could do it.
Potentially. A sudden, massive loss of engine power if you get large birds, or enough of them, ingested into both engines simultaneously. It's rare, but possible.
Okay. What else?
Others are looking at maybe, an engine malfunction itself, something subtle, maybe like a thrust anomaly that wasn't caught, or perhaps issues with the hydraulics. Even flap or landing gear configuration errors are being sort of put on the table.
A lot of possibilities then.
Yes, and what's really critical, I think, is how these possibilities, especially that bird strike idea, or maybe just a dual engine failure for some other reason, how they line up with that ram air turbine deployment.
Because the RAT means total or near total power loss.
Exactly. It strongly suggests a complete loss of power from both engines or a major hydraulic failure impacting control. An extremely rare catastrophic event, whatever the initial trigger might have been.
And meanwhile, you have Air India's chairman urging the airline internally to use this tragedy as a way to really reinforce safety culture.
That's right. He mentioned maintenance, crew training. It's a clear signal that they recognize the need to look at the whole system.
So it's not just about finding one broken part, potentially.
No, probably not. It's about examining all the interconnected pieces, the machines, the procedures, the people, the training, the oversight, all of it.
And there's another angle here, a really unfortunate ripple effect, the human element under stress. The day after the crash, apparently another Air India 787 flight, Delhi to Copenhagen, it had abort takeoff.
Why? What happened there?
Reports suggest pilot panic, possibly PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder triggered by the crash the day before.
Oh, wow. That really underscores the immense emotional toll these events take on the flight crews themselves.
Absolutely. And it highlights just how urgent the need is for really robust psychological support systems within the aviation industry.
It's critical because it's not just about the machines failing. The human element is under immense strain, too. And that strain, well, it can directly impact safety, can it?
It certainly seems so.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So beyond just the technical fixes everyone will be looking for, things like strong mental health support, peer support, frameworks.
Yeah.
I think Air India mentioned a buddy system they're putting in place.
Right.
Those things are essential. It really emphasizes the huge role of human factors in keeping aviation safe. The well-being of the people flying the planes, maintaining them. It directly impacts the whole safety chain.
So a key question then becomes, how do you support that human factor proactively, not just after something terrible happens?
Yeah, how do you sort of engineer psychological resilience in such a high-stakes job? That's a really complex question the industry constantly grapples with.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together for you, our listener. What really stands out from these early findings? Firstly, I think the sheer speed of it all. From whatever happened, potential engine failure, to the impact on the ground, it just underscores how little time pilots have, especially at low altitude right after takeoff.
An incredibly small window to react.
Yeah. And that emergency power activation, the RAT, it's a huge red flag. It points pretty directly towards severe engine or hydraulic failure, complete failure possible.
Can't ignore that piece of evidence.
Then there's the bird strike possibility. Early testimony seems to suggest it's plausible, which just highlights that constant tension between nature and technology, especially right around airports.
Always a risk factor near runways.
And finally, the ground impact itself. The fact the plane came down in a densely built-up area, that definitely brings up those urban runway risk concerns again. Aviation planners everywhere will be looking at this.
They'll have to. Reevaluating buffer zones, approach paths.
And woven through all of this, you have the critical human factors. Pilot mental health, like we just discussed,
Right.
The airline's overall crisis readiness, and of course this complex multinational investigation digging into that black box data.
And we absolutely cannot forget the human dimension, the sheer grief.
Yeah.
You have families, local residents just reeling from the shock. And the lone survivor, Mr. Ramesh, he's recovering, but imagine. His story is just overshadowed by this immense loss for so many others.
It's almost unimaginable.
It is. And while reports suggest the emergency response on the ground, the rescue coordination, victim ID, family support was strong and is being praised.
That's good to hear, at least.
It is. But the authorities still have a huge responsibility now to ensure timely transparency as this investigation moves forward.
Why is that so crucial, the transparency?
Well, it builds trust, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It helps everyone understand what really happened. It's about providing some measure of closure, some clarity, not just for the families directly affected, but for the entire aviation community and the flying public.
You're right. Rebuilding confidence.
Exactly.
So turning to you, our listener, if you're perhaps flying soon or maybe just feeling anxious about air travel after hearing this, the key thing really is to stay informed, but try not to be overly alarmed.
A difficult balance sometimes.
It is, but understanding a bit about safety systems, maybe asking airlines about their emergency protocols if you feel the need, and generally demanding strong oversight from regulators. These are all ways you can sort of engage constructively. Transparent safety standards, they benefit everyone. They're absolutely crucial for that confidence we just talked about. Your informed perspective here genuinely can make a difference over time.
And looking at those broader implications again, yes, the authorities are getting commended for the immediate response, the rescue, the victim ID efforts. That's important. But it remains vital, absolutely vital, to keep stressing the need for that timely transparency as the probe continues.
Which leads you to ask, doesn't it? What does it really take?
Take for what? To ensure the level of safety and, just as importantly, the trust that's required in an industry like aviation. An industry that relies so heavily on incredibly advanced technology, yes, but also on human resilience.
It's that balance again.
It is. Ultimately, the system's integrity rests just as much on the people operating, maintaining, overseeing as it does on the tech itself. This tragedy, as heartbreaking as it is, it really serves as a powerful push.
A push for what?
For continuous reinforcement of safety culture, of diligent maintenance, comprehensive crew training, and rebuilding trust throughout the whole aviation ecosystem. It's just a stark reminder, isn't it, that even the most sophisticated systems are only as resilient as the human mind operating them, especially under extreme stress. It really forces the industry to keep asking, how do we engineer psychological robustness as meticulously as we engineer engine parts?
A profound question indeed. Our thoughts, of course, remain deeply with everyone affected by the loss of Air India Flight 171. We will continue to follow the investigation closely and will bring you updates as they emerge right here on The Deep Dive. Until next time, please stay safe and take care of each other.